Hey Mary, sorry to bug you at work. What's up? I couldn't catch you yesterday because you were pretty elusive, so I thought I'd track you down. Nicole pointed you out to me. You probably already know, but I'm seeing John. I'm Mary, 35, a nurse at the biggest hospital around. Mom of 2 boys, ages 3 and 5, and John's my hubby. He's 5 years my senior and works as a doc at a nearby clinic. He used to be at the hospital, but with the kids, he switched to a clinic with no night shifts. I could easily lay off work with John's job, but house chores don't quite suit me, so here I am, juggling nursing and parenting. Crazy, right? Up early, sorting lunches, breakfast, laundry, dropping kids off, and then off to work. But hey, I prefer it this way. John, on the flip side, strolls into the clinic at 9, so he's a late riser. By the time he's up, we're out the door. He wraps up his clinic duties and heads home around 9 in the evening. By then, I'm beat, having handled dinners, baths, bedtime routines, you name it. But I still manage to whip up dinner for John. Not that I mind really. He's not much help around the house, but it's better that way. If he tried, I'd probably redo everything. Thanks for dinner, Mary. It was delicious as always. He always says that, and it warms my heart. How about a trip to the zoo this Sunday? Sounds fantastic. The kids will be thrilled. On his days off, he takes them out, being the cool dad. At the zoo last Sunday, the kids were ecstatic, running around like mad. Seeing them happy makes me happy. That's what it's all about, right? Here you go, Mary. Huh? He hands me a cute cell phone charm with a blue penguin on it. It matches the one on his phone. Then he shows me his phone, and there it is, the matching charm. I blushed a bit, feeling like we were back in high school, but it warmed my heart nonetheless. Thanks. It's a tad embarrassing, but I'm happy, I replied. You know, penguins are pretty loyal creatures. Some spend their whole lives with the same partner, John remarked, making me chuckle. I couldn't help but think perhaps we'd be like those penguins, sticking together through thick and thin, but who knows what the future holds. One day, I managed to leave work on time and rushed out of the hospital's bike parking lot, headed for the daycare. Are you Mary? An unfamiliar young woman approached me. Yes, that's me, I confirmed, curious. She introduced herself as Nicole, expressing her gratitude for John's support. Her sudden appearance caught me off guard. She was strikingly beautiful with long hair, not someone I knew well. Are you here for a checkup today? I asked, puzzled. No. Just passing by. Sorry if I startled you, Nicole explained before leaving. Her presence left me uneasy. What could she possibly want in the bike parking lot, meant only for hospital staff? That evening, I asked John about Nicole's visit. A woman named Nicole greeted you today at the hospital. Who is she? I inquired. Huh. She's a nurse at my clinic. I'll ask her next time, John replied, seeming surprised. His eagerness to end the conversation left me feeling distrustful. I encountered Nicole again about 2 weeks later, this time outside our house. It was when the daycare called, informing me that our eldest son had a fever and needed to be picked up. As I biked home with the kids, I spotted a figure waiting in front of our house. I immediately hit the brakes, pulling my bike to the side of the road. Though they were a bit distant, I could unmistakably recognize John and Nicole. I dialed John's number just to confirm. Hey Mary, what's up? I'm pretty swamped at work right now, he answered, even though he was clearly standing in front of our house. I'm sorry, our eldest son has a fever, so I'm heading home. Thought I'd let you know, I explained. Got it. I'll try to wrap up early today, he replied before hanging up. The 2 figures in front of our house then headed toward the clinic. I waited for a while before heading home. Luckily, despite the fever, my son seemed to be in good spirits, so there wasn't much cause for concern. But as they say, it's better to be vigilant. After ensuring he was settled with his favorite cartoon and some snacks, I took a moment to collect myself. The image of John and Nicole kept haunting me. I didn't want to entertain doubts, yet the suspicion of infidelity crept in, and I found myself gripping the penguin charm on my cell phone, as if seeking reassurance. In the evening, as promised, John rushed home and showed genuine concern for our son. He was such a devoted family man. Surely he couldn't be having an affair. At least, that's what I desperately wanted to believe. Mary, is something wrong? Did you notice something when you came home this afternoon? John asked, his demeanor uneasy. No, nothing. It just seemed like the chair was in a different position, I replied, feeling my suspicions growing stronger in the face of John's evident discomfort. I thought maybe you came home for lunch. No, I didn't come home. Maybe it's just your imagination, John chuckled, quickly diverting his attention to the newspaper. Just my imagination, huh? I let it slide for the moment but went to bed with an uneasy feeling, our conversation lingering in the air. The next day, our son's fever had subsided, so I dropped him off at daycare and returned to work. While busy at my job, the head nurse informed me of a visitor. Wondering who it could be, I headed to the designated lobby and found Nicole waiting there. "Hello, Mary. Sorry for interrupting you at work," she greeted me. "What can I do for you? I saw you hiding yesterday and thought I should say hi, so here I am," Nicole explained. I noticed her change in tone from our first meeting, now irritatingly flirtatious. Despite clearly being over 20, the way she spoke in public was rather off-putting. "John doesn't like older women like you. He said he prefers young girls like me, so I was thinking it's probably best if you step aside. You get what I'm saying, right?" "Not really," I replied, puzzled. "John and I are dating. You get it now. Look, here's the evidence," Nicole declared, opening her smartphone to show me a picture of them together in a hotel room, both wearing robes and looking content. Was his recent business trip a lie? Seeing my stern expression, Nicole smirked with satisfaction. "Now you get it, right? Hurry up and get a divorce, old lady." Having said what she came to say, she cheerfully left the hospital, seemingly content with herself. I felt as though a decision was being pushed upon me, yet I had already resolved myself to it. There was no room for doubt. It was merely a matter of the moment arriving sooner than expected. Taking swift action, I informed the head nurse that I was feeling unwell and left work early, also requesting leave for the following day. Though she seemed puzzled by my sudden uplifted spirits, I managed to secure her approval and promptly headed towards my destination. The confrontation was set for tomorrow. The next day, I found myself seated in the director's office of the clinic where John worked, with my father, who also happened to be the director, sitting across from me. He scrutinized the photos and documents I had laid out on the desk, his expression grave. Yes, from the moment I first met Nicole, I had enlisted the services of a detective agency to investigate John's infidelity, aiming to dispel the unease I had been feeling. Fortunately, I had the means to do so. Regardless of the outcome, I viewed it as an investment in securing a positive future for my family and had commissioned a month-long investigation. Despite Nicole's limited contact, the evidence gathered over the past 2 weeks was damning. It revealed that she had accompanied John on his recent business trip, sharing the same room. Furthermore, even in their daily lives, they spent considerable time together. They had been meeting almost every day during the breaks between John's consultations, even at our own home. My father's expression soured, but he lifted his gaze with a determined look. "Mary, what do you want to do? Consider the children and weigh your decision carefully," he urged. "I'm filing for divorce," I replied resolutely. I empathized with my father's plight, but my resolve remained unshaken. As I delivered my decision, he sighed, asking for a moment before dialing John's extension on the internal phone. After a brief interval, John, oblivious to the situation, entered with a smile upon seeing me. "Mary, you're here. Are you off work today?" His smile faded as he noticed the spread of photos on the table, his face draining of color with each passing second. What is this?" he stammered, his eyes fixed on the incriminating evidence before him. "John, you've been having an affair with Nicole. With this much evidence, denial isn't an option. We're getting a divorce?" I stated firmly. "A divorce? Why? This was just a fling. What I value is you and our family," John protested, his voice tinged with desperation. "Nicole came to disrupt my work, claiming you weren't interested in older women like me," I countered. "That's not true. You're beautiful and you're not old," John interjected, bewildered. My father promptly called for Nicole, startling her. "Doctor, you called for me." Nicole entered, visibly pleased to be personally summoned by the director, though her expression faltered upon noticing the tense atmosphere. "Nicole, could you explain these pictures?" my father inquired, gesturing towards the evidence on the table. Nicole's brows furrowed momentarily before she composed herself, wearing a smug smirk. "I apologize, doctor. John and I are dating. Of course, I know about Mary, but I could support him as a housewife. This way, he can concentrate on his work and be a devoted father," Nicole declared confidently, seemingly mistaking my father for John's own. "John, visibly shaken, appeared at a loss for words while my father turned to me with a solemn inquiry. Mary, have you decided to break up with John? I'll ensure you're compensated and will take good care of the children, so please don't worry. I couldn't help but chuckle at Nicole's dramatic speech, though she didn't seem amused. Instead, she appeared slightly irritated. It's not severance pay, it's alimony. And since I'll be the one raising the kids, I'll need child support from John, I clarified matter-of-factly. Well, that can't be helped, but I'm glad you agreed to the divorce. Now I can be with John, Nicole continued, seemingly on a roll. Stop it, John muttered under his breath, but Nicole, caught up in her momentum, didn't seem to hear him. Well then, as soon as you're ready, could you leave the house? Nicole's words were abruptly halted as John grabbed her shoulder to silence her. Her surprised gaze met his, and John spoke up. Nicole, I'm sorry, it was just a fling. My family is important to me, and I can't be with you, he confessed, causing color to drain from Nicole's face. Why? You told me you were divorcing her to marry me. You said you'd make me the wife of the future director, and I believed you. I don't understand, Nicole protested, her confusion evident. You told me you're not into older women like her. You said how lonely you are with her, always at work and not at home, she continued, her tone pleading. It felt like I was witnessing a messy breakup unfolding before my eyes, and my impatience began to grow. That's enough. I'm filing for divorce from John. I'll be seeking alimony from both of you, and John, you'll need to pay child support too. That's all, I declared, attempting to conclude the conversation. My father, understanding my temperament, chuckled and interjected, well, since my daughter said her piece. Wait, did you just say your daughter? John interrupted, visibly stunned. Yes, Mary is my child and John is my son-in-law, my father clarified, causing Nicole to panic. What happens if he's no longer the heir? Can't he live in that big house anymore? Nicole panicked, realizing the implications. Mary, I'm truly sorry. John suddenly fell to his knees, bowing deeply to me. Nicole, now realizing she was nothing more than a fling, was left stunned. I can't ask for your forgiveness, but could you possibly give me another chance? John's desperate bowing likely stemmed from the fear of losing his job. However, no matter how deeply he bowed, I couldn't find it in me to forgive him. Besides the affair, there was another reason why forgiving John was impossible for me. That's impossible. Do you recognize this? I pulled out my cell phone and showed him the blue penguin charm. John's face paled, confirming his guilt. Yesterday, when John showed me the photo at the hospital, I had been elated. We had matching charms, and he had shared with me the significance of penguins mating for life. I cherished the blue penguin charm he had given me, but now I noticed something crucial. Nicole also had the light blue charm on her phone. Yes, Nicole confirmed. John bought it for me. Admitting defeat, John confessed to buying it. That's why it's impossible. We should break up. Nicole has the exact same one, not just a different color. That tells me enough about your feelings. I can't forgive you, no matter what. Please, Mary, John pleaded, but my father intervened, expressing his outrage at John's betrayal and Nicole's disruption of clinic discipline. As a clinic director, I must punish both of you, my father declared. Be prepared for that. I'm so sorry, but please let me keep my job, John pleaded. We'll go through lawyers from now on. You both can leave for today, and from tomorrow, you'll be on paid leave. You don't have to come to work. Wait, I don't understand, I interjected. John, you're a doctor. Can't you work elsewhere? Quit this small clinic and let's start over. Please, Nicole, let's break up, John added. I never imagined losing my family or happiness. Are you freaking serious? You deceived me. I lashed out, my father intervening to silence the bickering between John and Nicole. Despite John's past insistence that family was paramount, his actions have betrayed us. The thought of returning to the house where John and Nicole had apparently spent every day together filled me with dread. So, I requested to stay with my parents for a while, taking my children with me. Arriving at their house, a sense of relief washed over me. Exhaustion consumed me, and I fell into a deep sleep, only to awaken in pitch darkness. Startled, I checked the clock, realizing it was midnight. My cell phone was illuminated with numerous missed calls and text messages from John. I couldn't bear to hear his voice, so I read through his apologies and excuses for the affair. Among them, I found a plea for my father's intervention, claiming remorse. A cynical laugh escaped me. It seemed John's remorse was more about securing his position at the clinic. Fury and pity overwhelmed me, leading me to forcefully tear off the penguin charm from my cell phone and discard it. A wave of sadness engulfed me, tears flowing freely even in the dead of night. My mother, awakened by my sobs, offered her comforting presence, staying by my side throughout the night. Family's warmth enveloped me, and as I yearned to build a family like this, my tears continued to flow. The next morning, I awoke feeling lighter. Though my mother expressed concern, I've always been one to bounce back quickly. I had completely cut off all emotional ties with John. That very day, I met with a lawyer introduced by my father and swiftly arranged for alimony and child support. I left the rest to the lawyer and resumed my daily life. It took longer than expected, but eventually the lawyer informed me that the divorce was finalized. John had put up a fight, unwilling to let go of both the marriage and the clinic. However, he eventually agreed to a settlement after realizing he had little chance of winning in court. Once the divorce was finalized, Nicole and her parents discovered the news and pressured John into marrying her, citing our child. I had demanded substantial alimony, and John was left with almost no money after paying the lump sum for child support. Nicole was furious at the turn of events, neglecting housework, which led to constant arguments between them. The lawyer kept me informed of these developments. Moreover, although my father now ran a small clinic, he had a vast network from his previous role as a department head at a large hospital. News of John's situation spread quickly in the area, making it challenging for him to find employment as a doctor elsewhere. Whether he would leave town or find a different job was of little concern to me now. My father decided to rent out our former house to someone he knew, respecting my desire not to return there. I resolved to build a new home for my family of 3 with my own finances. Until then, I planned to stay at my parents' house to care for my children. Despite my young age, I jokingly mentioned to my parents that I wondered if there might be someone else out there for me. They laughed, teasing me about my impatience. My brother invited us to stay at his place and said we wouldn't have to pay rent or bills. I work with money and my husband Charlie fixes cars. We live in the house where I grew up. But it's not just any house. It's been in my family for a long time and used to be where my dad ran his business. My brother was supposed to take over the business, so he studied economics in college. He even went to Oxford University to learn more about running a business. After that, he came back to the US and worked with our dad for a while. When our parents retired and moved away, they gave the business to my brother and the house to me, so my husband and I decided to live there. The house is in a great spot, close to public transportation and other important places like shops, hospitals, and schools. It's perfect for us now, and even when our kids grow up and move out, we'll still be comfortable here. I'm really thankful my parents gave me this house. We were excited about our future here, but things took a bad turn unexpectedly. My mother-in-law started visiting a lot after we moved in. She kept asking about my parents' money because they used to run a business. She'd say things like, "Hey Maya, how much money do your parents have? What will you get when they pass away?" It made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to be rude, so I just said, "I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it much. They gave us this house, so maybe there won't be much money left." I tried to brush it off, but she kept pushing, saying, "That can't be true. They're getting old. They must have talked to you about their money." It seemed like she was really interested in their wealth, like she was expecting to get something. I already knew what I would inherit, but I decided not to tell her or my husband, who's close to her, to avoid any more trouble. Something really unexpected happened next. Out of nowhere, my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law's family moved into our house. It was a holiday morning around 8:00 a.m. when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find movers standing there. I was shocked and confused. Then my mother-in-law and brother-in-law's family showed up and said, "We're moving in here today, so take care of us." When I saw their smirking faces, I felt a shiver down my spine. My husband woke up, and when I asked him what was going on, he seemed unfazed and said, "What's the problem? There's plenty of space in this house for all of us." He acted like it was totally normal for them to move in. As if that wasn't surprising enough, my sister-in-law said something even more unbelievable. She said, "We were invited by your brother, Maya. He said we don't have to pay rent or bills, so we're counting on you." Then my brother-in-law started barging into rooms without asking and said, "This room gets good sunlight, so we'll take it, Charlie." Move all the stuff out into the hallway. I felt really dizzy after all this happened. This is my house, but they're acting like they own it, opening doors and claiming rooms. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family have been pretty rude for a while, especially my sister-in-law, who even went through my bag without asking. If they keep this up, they'll start taking over my space. I've had enough. This is my house, so why are you acting like you own it? I've had it. I want everyone to leave. I usually keep my cool and don't raise my voice, but seeing these people move into the house my parents gave me without asking and acting like it's theirs pushed me over the edge. That's why I lost control and yelled at all three of them. But then something unexpected happened. How dare you talk to us like that? You're the one who should leave. The moment those words were said, I felt a sharp pain on my cheek. Did I just get slapped? It took me a few seconds to realize what had happened. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it, and all I could feel was the throbbing pain on my cheek. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I can't live with people who would do something like that, but this house belongs to me. I don't want them living here like parasites, so I decided to pack my things and leave, planning to tell my family about what happened. I needed to find a place far away from here, so I rented a monthly apartment for now. I'll have to commute to work from there. As soon as I told my parents about what happened over the phone, I could sense their anger, even from a distance, especially from my dad. He's always been very caring and has adored me and my brother. As a CEO, he was strict, but as a father, he was always kind and ready to help us out of any trouble. I didn't want to drag my parents, who were just about to retire, into this mess, but I had no choice because my rightful home was being taken away from me. While I stayed in the monthly apartment, I was sure that my husband and his family were making themselves comfortable in my house. So I decided to take action based on suggestions from my brother and father. A few days later, during my break, I checked my phone and saw dozens of missed calls and messages from my husband. I knew exactly why he was trying to reach me. I took action and called the water and electric companies to shut off the utilities. Our house relies completely on electricity, and without it, nothing works. We haven't set up solar panels yet, so there's no other way to get power. Since it's really hot right now, living without electricity and water must be tough. My husband's calls were probably about dealing with this situation. Just as I was about to ignore his call, my husband rang again, perfectly timed with my break. Hey, what's going on? There's no power, and the water isn't running. Did you cut off the electricity and water? I could tell from his voice that he was in a panic. The house belongs to me, so now that I'm not living there, it wouldn't make sense to keep the electricity and water running, right? That's why I had them shut off. If I kept the utilities on, I'd have to pay the bills even though I'm not living there. I can't agree to that, so I naturally had them turned off. When I explained this to my husband, he got really angry and insisted that I turn the services back on right away. But just because he wants me to doesn't mean I'm going to agree. I get it. If they want to renew the services, they should pay for it themselves. But whenever this comes up, they always say things like, "It's your house, so you should foot the bill." Their words and actions don't match. Anyway, I have no plans to renew the contract or tell them to leave the house immediately. I simply hung up the phone after saying that as my break was ending. Later on, my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and brother-in-law all called me saying the same thing. They wanted me to reconnect the electricity and water because their room was too hot and uncomfortable, and it was inconvenient without water. But these were their problems, not mine. After listening to their complaints, I told them to deal with it themselves and hung up. I thought they were just being greedy and hoped they'd give up and leave soon. Even after a week went by, there was no sign of them leaving. So I decided to take stronger action. I talked to a lawyer from my father's company about the situation and asked him to send a notice to my husband. The notice was about trespassing. They had entered my house without permission, forced me out, and were using it as if it were their own. I warned them that I was considering taking legal action against them for this. Why did I receive this document from a lawyer? Did things really have to escalate this far? My husband, who seemed surprised and panicked by my actions, came to me seeking a resolution. Knowing how much they care about their reputation, the thought of being sued would be really stressful for them. They definitely don't want to deal with a lawyer, but they also don't want to give up their current lifestyle. So they're likely trying to find a way to convince me to let them stay. I can see through my husband's intentions very clearly. But I couldn't bring myself to listen to their pleas, so I didn't give in to my husband's requests. My husband finally exploded in anger, forgetting he was at work, and yelled at me, "Stop it. Just because we're being a bit sneaky doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. Go back to how things were and drop the lawyer." Despite his loud outburst, I remained unaffected. Instead, I felt annoyed by his call, thinking, who does he think he is, taking over someone else's house? No matter how much he shouts, my stance won't change. If they continue squatting there, I'll take legal action. They better think twice before acting. Even as my husband continued yelling over the phone, I ignored him and hung up. It felt like a waste of time. I had already discussed divorce with my lawyer. When I got home, I saw missed calls from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, but I knew they'd only try to settle things. I didn't want to waste any more time, so I blocked their numbers to avoid further calls. After the threat of legal action, my husband's prideful family couldn't bear the thought of being sued. They packed their bags and left the house. With the lawyer's help, the divorce negotiations went smoothly. I arranged for a cleaning service to come in, and finally, I returned to my sparkling clean house. While living separately from my husband's family and then in a monthly rental was comfortable, nothing beats being back in my own home. However, I noticed that the house needed some renovations in certain areas. I discussed this with my father, who introduced me to a reliable contractor. I began planning the renovations with their help. Living alone is really comfortable. I enjoy the freedom of not being tied down by anyone else. I found myself enjoying the freedom of my current life. I could lounge on the sofa without anyone scolding me, eat whatever I wanted without judgment. But then I received a call from an unknown number after 3 months of silence. Initially, I ignored it, thinking it might be a contractor. However, when the calls persisted, I reluctantly answered, only to find it was from my ex-husband, from whom I had recently divorced with the help of a lawyer. We had made a pact to never contact each other again. So why was he calling now, especially after changing his number? We had agreed through our lawyers to stay apart for good. There was nothing left to discuss, so I asked him not to contact me again. Just as I was about to hang up, he pleaded, "Please just listen to me for a moment. I'm begging you." Despite my reluctance, he began speaking without my consent. It turned out his company was facing a severe financial crisis and they had decided to reduce his salary. Moreover, my mother-in-law's health was failing, rendering her unable to work. My sister-in-law and her husband couldn't contribute much to the household expenses due to his unstable job situation. Although my sister-in-law was working multiple part-time jobs, most of her earnings were going towards paying off her husband's debts. My ex-husband was struggling to make ends meet, and with his salary cut, things were only going to get tougher. After hearing all of that, all I could think was, okay, so what? They barged into my house without permission, did whatever they wanted, and even tried to kick me out. It's simply unbelievable. I feel nothing for people who would do such a thing, and I have no sympathy for them. Even if you tell me about their troubles, it doesn't change anything. They're your family, you should deal with it yourself. There's nothing I can do about it. My ex-husband started to panic even more at my words. Don't say that. We're in serious trouble. We won't even be able to pay the rent for our apartment and will struggle to buy food tomorrow. We used to be a family, right? Please help us, he pleaded, almost in tears. But I wasn't convinced. When I was in trouble, he did nothing to help, and he, along with my mother-in-law, looked down on me. Just like her, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law always belittled me. They insulted me for my appearance or my old-fashioned views. They didn't care how much it hurt me. My mother-in-law not only made things worse, but she also pressured me to have a baby as soon as possible. She forced strange herbal medicines on me, booked unnecessary doctor's appointments, and spread rumors to the neighbors that I was unable to conceive. Looking back, there wasn't a single positive aspect to my marriage. My ex-husband, who used to be kind before we got married, became a puppet under my mother-in-law's control after the wedding. On the first day my mother-in-law barged into our house, I was out for an appointment. She cried to my husband, saying she wanted to be friends with me, but the moment we met, she would badmouth me. She'd say things like, "My son seems to have lost weight. Is it because your cooking is so bad?" Whether we were at home or out. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law would join in, laughing at me. I can't deal with people who behave like this anymore. No matter what you say, my feelings won't change. I can't help you guys, so I'm going to hang up now. And please never contact me again. With that, I finally hung up the phone and blocked the new number. Knowing my ex-husband, he might change his number and try to contact me again. So I decided to change my phone number at the store over the weekend. But before that, those four broke the promise made through the lawyer and suddenly showed up at my house at 11 o'clock p.m. Open up, let us in, and take care of us. We're family, you should help us. They were banging on the door, yelling loudly without considering the late hour. What's going on at this time? Please go back home, you're disturbing the neighbors. When I went to open the door, they seemed ready to force their way in. So I tried talking to them through the intercom, but they didn't care. They continued banging on the door and causing a commotion. I couldn't believe I was dealing with people behaving so recklessly. I felt overwhelmed and considered calling the police when I heard sirens approaching from outside. It seemed a neighbor had taken the initiative as soon as they heard the police sirens. The group, startled, thought I had called the police and attempted to flee. However, with a crowd gathered, escape wasn't an option. Consequently, they were escorted to the police station by the responding officers. I was questioned about the incident and I explained everything that had transpired. News of my ex-husband and his companion's actions spread rapidly in the neighborhood. Among the crowd was a co-worker of my ex-husband's, and by the next day, the entire office was aware of the situation. Already struggling due to a salary reduction, getting the police involved sealed my ex-husband's fate with his employer. He was fired, unable to afford his apartment rent anymore. Financial strain created tension between him and his sister's family, leading to their shared living arrangement coming to an end. Now, Charlie resides in public housing with his mother, working multiple part-time jobs to get by. Even his mother has taken on part-time work, eager to contribute financially.
Hi, I'm Claire, and I'm 34 years old. Let me tell you about the time I decided to get back at my mean mother-in-law who was determined to make my life miserable. I tried to be patient and ignore her behavior for a while, but eventually I couldn't take it anymore. Let me explain a bit. Whenever my mother-in-law gave me something, it was never very good. Like on our wedding day. This present is from my mother-in-law, Justine. Let's see what's inside. It's a used spatula. Well, thank you. And on my 31st birthday, Justine, you really shouldn't have. What's inside? Oh, it's, what exactly is it? It's a shovel, dear. Ah, how nice. But it looks a bit old. It's a fixed-up shovel. I later discovered she took it from the neighbor's shed and gave it to me. Another time, when I hosted a dinner party, she brought the cheapest bottle of wine she could find. At that point, I wished she wouldn't bother doing anything for me at all. But what really bothered me were the times she insisted on cooking for me, only for the food to taste awful every single time. At first, I was understanding. Not everyone is a great cook, and that's okay. I thought it was the thought that counted, not necessarily the taste. But then I learned that the same dishes she made for me tasted amazing when she cooked for other people. After trying to convince myself otherwise for a while, I realized she was intentionally making my food taste bad. Claire, try my casserole. I made it. I'm really full from all the food you've given me. Please, just take a bite for me. I reluctantly took a bite, feeling uneasy about what might happen next. As expected, the casserole tasted terrible. It made me wonder if she was trying to harm me with it. You might be wondering what my husband thought about all of this. Well, he didn't believe me. I didn't blame him. It's tough to accept such a strange idea, especially when it's about your own mother. But I kept asking him to try the food she made for me, hoping he'd see what I meant. Every time, he'd dismiss me, saying I was imagining things. Sometimes he'd almost try it, but Justine always stopped him. Hey, that food is for Claire. I made it just for her, considering her dietary needs. Yes, I have specific dietary needs because I'm a vegetarian, but I married into a family that loves their meat. So whenever there's a big family meal, my mother-in-law, Justine, would make a separate dish for me, which I appreciated. But it always seemed like she didn't put much effort into it. After realizing she was messing with my food, I tried to understand her. Maybe she was upset about having to make a special dish for me. But that didn't explain why she gave me terrible gifts all the time. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt until a few months ago. I invited a coworker who's also a vegetarian to a family cookout. Justine made 2 vegetarian dishes, one for my coworker and one for me. I tasted my coworker's dish secretly, and it was delicious, but mine was awful. It was clear that Justine could cook well. When I told my husband Liam about it, he just brushed it off. "Oh, come on, Claire, you're overreacting and being a bit rude." I'm telling you, she's intentionally messing with my food. She doesn't want to make good food for me. Even if the food isn't great, which I doubt, what do you expect from her? She's just one person. Maybe you could help her out in the kitchen, especially with vegetarian dishes. I've offered to help many times, but she gets defensive and thinks I don't like her cooking, which you don't. And when I suggest things, she gets upset. There's no pleasing her. Maybe you should bring your own food to gatherings then, even if it seems rude. It's not like you have a serious allergy. You're just a vegetarian, and everyone can make vegetarian food. But remember Lucy, your coworker? She was nice. Yeah, Lucy's food was great, even the vegetarian dishes. They both took a moment to think about everything. Liam sat down on the bed, thinking deeply. "Well, say something," Claire urged. "Look, you're my wife, and I love you. I want to trust you, but I think you might be imagining things. I understand that my mom can be odd with gifts, but sabotaging your food, that's really messed up and dangerous, isn't it?" "Exactly. One time, I swear I smelled bleach in my food. I had to make an excuse to go to the bathroom so I wouldn't have to eat it." "Claire, maybe because you and my mom don't get along, you're seeing her differently than the rest of us. She's a fantastic cook." "I agree. After trying Lucy's food tonight, I'm sure she can cook well, but for some reason, she doesn't put in the effort with me." "Enough. I won't let you talk badly about my mom anymore. She's a great cook. You're imagining things." I was frustrated. How many times did I have to convince him I was telling the truth? I decided to prove it. I waited for the next family gathering to make my move. About a month later, my mother-in-law called. "I'm good, thank you. How about you?" "Oh, I'm excited. We're having another family gathering this weekend to celebrate Uncle JJ's return from France. Can you and Liam make it?" "Of course, Justine. We wouldn't miss it." "Oh, that's great. Uncle JJ prefers simple things, even though he's from France. So we're keeping it casual with sliders and sandwiches. You can even bring your coworker friend again. She was lovely." "Unfortunately, she can't make it this time, but Liam and I will be there." "Oh, that's too bad. But I'm glad you both can come. Oh, one more thing before I forget. I've decided to get you some special plates to make it easier to separate vegetarian and non-vegetarian dishes. They're beautiful navy blue plates." "No problem, Justine. Thank you. Okay, see you soon." After hanging up, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. Normally, different plates wouldn't bother me, but knowing what I knew about her, I realized it was just another way for her to make me feel isolated from everyone else. Everyone else in the family always enjoys their meals, but mine are always terrible. So when I complain, I look picky and fussy. But that's not true. There are rumors going around that I'm just being difficult, and I wish I could prove them wrong by sharing my food. But Justine always stops me and gets upset if I don't eat what she made. Sometimes I manage to avoid eating it, but usually I have to force it down quickly to avoid tasting it. Whenever I visit, I dread it and can't wait to leave and make my own food. But this weekend was different. I was excited because I had a plan to show everyone that I wasn't making things up. I had real concerns and everyone needed to see that. The weekend came and Liam and I brought our coleslaw to the barbecue. There was so much meat everywhere. Even the meat lovers thought it was too much. Despite my initial worries, the party was going well. I was enjoying chatting with my in-laws and playing with my nieces and nephews. But when Justine called us to the dining table, my stomach churned with dread. I forced myself to smile and sit next to Liam. "You see, Claire, everyone's having fun. Why can't you relax? Mom put a lot of effort into this. Maybe if you had a better attitude, you'd enjoy the food." I was tired of Liam's lectures. He had no idea what it was like dealing with his mom's awful cooking, but I had a plan. Justine brought out the food, and my plate, as promised, was navy blue. It stood out among the white plates on the table, but I didn't care. I was ready for my revenge. As everyone sat down to eat and grace was said, I suddenly exclaimed, "Oh my goodness, is that a snake?" People were startled and chaos ensued. The kids got excited and wanted to see the snake, while the adults sprang into action, with the women leading the children inside and the men cautiously checking out where I pointed. While everyone was distracted, I followed behind the women, glancing back at the dinner table. Luckily, all the food looked similar, so it was hard to tell which plate was which. That's why my mother-in-law made a special plate for me, so she could tell which one had the bad food. As people started to come back from checking for the snake, I quickly swapped the sandwiches from my plate and Liam's. Just as Justine was coming back outside, Liam told her it was a false alarm and the snake was gone. As everyone returned to their seats, there was a sense of excitement in the air, despite the false alarm. People enjoyed the rush of adrenaline, even the elders. They settled back into their seats, and I apologized, saying, "Sorry, everyone. I must have misjudged the ground. Please excuse the disturbance." Everyone took it well, not too bothered by the interruption. "No problem, dear. It's better to be safe than sorry," someone replied, and everyone seemed to enjoy the little thrill of the snake scare. The mood shifted when Liam took a bite of what he thought was his sandwich, but it turned out to be my vegetarian one. "It's wild," he said before biting into it. Suddenly, he stopped and everyone's attention turned to him. He gagged and spat out the sandwich. "Ew, this is awful." "Liam, that's so rude," Justine scolded him. "I put so much effort into these dishes," Justine protested as everyone began to eat their food, enjoying the delicious flavors. They started questioning Liam about his reaction. Even Uncle JJ, who usually stayed quiet, said it tasted fine to him. "I don't know, guys. The food just tasted weird to me for a moment. Sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to be rude. Maybe it's a new recipe. Let me try again." Liam attempted to take another bite, but he started gagging before it reached his mouth. Justine was getting flustered and complained about Liam's rudeness. "Mom, I'm sorry, but I can't eat this. There's something wrong with it." "Except it's not," I added, and everyone looked at me, surprised by my statement. It was then that Liam noticed I hadn't touched my food. "Babe, why aren't you eating?" "Because it has meat in it," I admitted. The table fell silent, and I saw understanding dawn in Liam's eyes. "Mom, have you been messing with Claire's food?" Everyone exclaimed, shocked. Justine started shouting in response. "Liam, I don't know what's gotten into you. Maybe it's your spoiled wife who convinced you, but I won't stand for this. Apologize now." "No, Mom, it's your food that's spoiled. Claire was right," Liam declared. He handed his sandwich to Uncle JJ, who almost threw up after trying to take a bite. Justine's eyes turned to me, filled with venom. "What have you done?" she hissed. "I should be asking you the same thing. You've been sabotaging my meals every time I come here, making me miserable." I confessed to everyone. "I'm sorry for lying about the snake, but I needed a distraction. Justine has been poisoning my food since I joined this family." Everyone gasped in shock. It's true. I suspected it for a while, and I know I might have seemed picky, but try Justine's sandwich if you can stomach it, I urged. The sandwich made its way around the table, eliciting gagging and dry heaving from those who tried it. They advised the elderly and children not to eat it, and one person even considered going to the hospital due to the smell. "Your move, Justine," I challenged. Okay, you got me. I was sabotaging your food," Justine confessed. "Why would you do that?" "Because she hates me. She's always had it out for me since day one," Justine shouted. Liam suddenly looked ill. He vomited all over the grass and collapsed onto the patio sofa. "Mom, what did you put in that sandwich?" Liam asked weakly. Liam, Oh God, are you okay? That sandwich wasn't meant for you. I'm so sorry, everyone. Please forgive me," Justine exclaimed in panic. Uncle JJ's homecoming had to be cut short, and several family members rushed Liam to the hospital. It turned out that the sandwich contained rancid mushrooms with traces of cat feces, causing severe food poisoning. Liam was hospitalized for some time as he recovered, and my mother-in-law was arrested after confessing to her actions. The incident made me realize the extent of her hatred towards me. She was willing to harm me just because she despised me. If it had been me, she might have delayed getting help. But because it was her son, she rushed to fix her mistake. However, it was too late. Thankfully, Liam recovered fully. During his hospital stay, he repeatedly apologized for not believing me about his mother's actions. His mother attempted to post bail, but the other family members refused, insisting she needed to reflect on her actions. Visitors informed me of her remorse and realization of her mistakes after seeing her son suffer. However, I couldn't accept her apology. It took seeing her son in pain for her to acknowledge her wrongdoing. For years, she never considered the harm she was causing. Who knows what else she put in my food? I endured it in silence, often getting sick and missing work to recover. After sharing this with my husband, he felt even more sympathetic towards me and promised to always believe me. I'm relieved I could impart 2 lessons. Always trust your spouse and don't mess with me, or you might end up in jail.
Hi, I'm Fiona, and I'm 30 years old. I stay at home with my 2 lovely kids. Life's been mostly good lately, but there's been some trouble with my husband. A while back, we had a big fight, and it's all because of his mom. You know how moms can be important to their sons, right? Well, sometimes it feels like she's a bit too involved. My husband is what you might call a mama's boy, and it can be tough to deal with sometimes. Our argument went like this. Fiona, can you come here for a minute? Sure, what's up? I need to talk to you. Please sit down. Is everything all right? Yes, everything's okay. I just wanted to talk about how we need to spend less money on some things at home. Is everything all right with your job? Yeah, work's fine. Don't worry. I just decided we need to spend more on something important, so we have to cut back on other stuff. Okay, what's the new expense? He took a deep breath, like he knew I wouldn't like what he had to say. I'm going to start giving Mom some money every month. It won't be a lot, but she's getting older and she needs some extra cash. I felt unsure and puzzled. It didn't seem right to me to give money to someone who already had plenty. My mother-in-law, Rita, had a successful business, and since she was a widow and her kids had moved out, she didn't need more money. I told my husband how I felt about it, but he tried to reassure me. How much money are we talking about? Don't worry about it. Excuse me? I'm the one managing the household, so I need to know. How much? I'm going to send her $4,000 every month. I was shocked. $4,000 a month? That seemed crazy to me, considering that's what many people spend in total each month. He'd be giving her all that money for basically nothing. I tried to argue with him, saying it wasn't possible, but he wouldn't budge. Our argument got so bad that we ended up sleeping in different beds that night. We're well off, but I always try to be smart with our money so we don't waste it. Giving someone $4,000 a month for no good reason, just because she's my mom and I love her, adds up to $48,000 a year. That money could go towards our kids' college funds, their savings accounts, our health insurance, or even better, it could go to people who actually need it, like charities. I tried explaining this to him, but he wasn't willing to listen. 5 months passed since he began sending money to his mother, and to add insult to injury, he wanted me to be the one to send it to her. It felt like he was trying to punish me and show that he'd always put his mother first. But thankfully, his arrogant behavior wouldn't last forever. I stumbled upon something shocking. It all began when my mother-in-law visited us 3 months after she started getting the allowance. Hello, Fiona. How's my favorite daughter-in-law? I'm doing well, thank you. How about you? Oh, I'm feeling so much better ever since Adam started sending me money. I was struggling a bit before, you know. The business wasn't doing as well as I hoped, but I didn't want to ask for help. I guess Adam just sensed it. It's like our special mother-son connection. I felt terrible hearing this. How could I deny her the money she needed? I always thought she was fine, but she wasn't. She started to cry, and I comforted her. I've always been okay with sharing money with those who need it, and Rita clearly did. Also, I thought, After a heart-to-heart talk, I noticed something strange. Rita started talking about going on luxury trips now that she had extra money. It didn't make sense to me. If she needed money, why talk about trips? But whenever I looked confused, she'd backtrack and say she meant once she became rich again. It was odd, but I brushed it off because she said she needed the money. 2 more months passed, and I kept sending her the money. She'd always thank me profusely, saying how much she needed it. I felt bad for doubting her and guilty for arguing with my husband. Unfortunately, we started feeling the effects of less money in our household. It's tough to change your routine. Still, I tried to cut back wherever I could, and we managed to get by. Then, one night, I came across a text from his mother while cleaning my husband's office. Curiosity got the better of me, so I read it. "Hey Adam, hope you're doing well. Could you increase my monthly allowance? I want to enjoy some extra luxuries." I was stunned. How could she ask for more money when she already gets enough to cover the average monthly expenses of a single person in America? Remember, she's a healthy, capable 65-year-old widow who lives alone. So why did she need more money, especially for luxuries? It didn't add up. My sympathy for her was fading, and I couldn't resist the urge to find out more. Ignoring the email from his mother on my husband's computer, I started searching through the family finances. Unfortunately, I didn't find any evidence of wrongdoing, so I decided to come up with a plan. "Hi Fiona, everything all right? Why are you calling so late?" "Hello Rita, I hope everything's okay with you." "Well, I'm managing, but honestly, it's been tough. Sometimes I struggle to afford even basic things like toiletries. I'm really grateful to my son for helping me out. Anyway, I was thinking, would you like to come over for tea tomorrow?" "Tea sounds wonderful. Thank you for inviting me. You know, things have been tight for me too. Sometimes I can't even afford tea, so it'll be nice to have some with you." "Oh, it'll be my pleasure, Rita. Just come over, and we'll have a nice afternoon together." "All right then, see you soon. Bye." "Bye." With that, I hung up, preparing for my plan. The next day, Rita came over, and we had a lovely time. As we were chatting during our afternoon tea, Rita excused herself to use the bathroom. This was my chance to snoop around. I quickly went through her purse and found her phone, which was unlocked. I opened her banking app, determined to uncover the truth about her financial situation. Women's intuition rarely fails, and I stumbled upon some shocking news. With my suspicions growing stronger, I delved into her financial records, expecting to find evidence of financial struggle. However, nothing could have prepared me for what I discovered. Rita had over $1.6 million in her bank account as of 6 months ago. I was stunned. I had to exit the app and reopen it just to confirm that I wasn't mistaken. But there it was, clear as day. She had a huge sum of money in her account. Confusion overwhelmed me, and then, to make matters even more bewildering, I noticed a familiar text message on her phone. It was from one of her employees, and it said, "Hello Rita, please find attached the financial breakdown of last month's earnings. Just wanted to let you know, it looks like we've made a big profit for the 4th month in a row. You're a fantastic businesswoman. I'm eager to hear your thoughts." Naturally, I opened the attached document and my eyes widened at the sight of even more money. The report showed a monthly profit of $8,400 for a small business. It was truly impressive. At this rate, the business would thrive. Sitting there in shock for what felt like ages, I couldn't help but feel furious. This lady was taking money from her son's household, from her own grandchildren, for no real reason other than to satisfy her own ego. As I heard Rita returning from the restroom, quickly, I erased all traces of my snooping and placed her phone back in her purse. Rita returned, thanking me for the tea. "Oh Fiona, thank you again for the lovely tea. You know, as an old lady, it's tough to manage, especially when you're already struggling. Lately, things have been really hard for me, dear, and I'm so grateful for you and your husband's help. Say, could I ask you for something, if it's not too much trouble?" "Of course. What do you need?" "We're just happy to help. But may I ask, is it possible for me to get some more money, maybe an increase to $6,000 a month?" Let me tell you, it took every ounce of self-control not to explode and lash out at this woman for all the nonsense she was putting me through. I gritted my teeth and responded, "I understand your struggles since you're clearly going through a tough time. It's not like you're a millionaire or anything." She froze for a moment, a subtle reaction that I might have missed if I didn't know what I knew. But because I was aware, I caught it. Luckily for her, she quickly recovered. Oh no, of course not. If I were, I wouldn't be asking you, darling. So what do you say? Unfortunately, I don't think we can manage an extra $2,000. As soon as I said this, Rita's smile faded, replaced by what seemed like irritation. She pressed her lips together, clearly frustrated. Oh, that's all right, no problem. Well, I have to leave now, so let's catch up again soon. She left in a hurry, almost as if she had just been rejected by a lover, and wanted to escape to avoid embarrassment. Now, knowing she was a liar and a thief, any sympathy I had for her vanished. I debated whether to tell my husband what I found, but I decided against it. He needed to see her true colors for himself, especially after he criticized me so harshly. It was a painful lesson he needed to learn on his own. A couple of days passed, and it was time to send my mother-in-law her monthly allowance of $4,000. Despite having the money from my husband, I chose not to. I wanted her to feel the shock and disappointment when the money didn't arrive later that day. It would be a wake-up call she sorely needed. Just as I anticipated, my husband called me a couple of hours later. What's going on? What do you mean? Why are you upset? Don't play dumb, Fiona. I know what you're up to. Why haven't you sent Mom the allowance? I'm getting tired of your games. You won't believe what I found out. There's a reason behind what I'm doing. Listen, I understand you care about your mom. I'm sorry if you feel I don't appreciate that, but you need to hear me out. You don't even earn a dime to have a say in how we spend our money. It's my money and I'll decide what to do with it. So when I say send money, you do it. You're just a housewife. Remember that. His words shattered my heart. How could he talk to me like that? I was stunned. All the anger I'd bottled up for so long suddenly erupted. So I decided to fire back. You know what your problem is? You don't appreciate me. You think being a housewife and mom is a breeze. Well, let's see how easy it is without me. I'm not sticking around to be treated like this. But before I go, check your mother's bank account. Don't bother calling me until you've done that. Have a nice evening. Fiona, wait, I didn't mean. I hung up. I was fed up with being treated like dirt. Sometimes life throws challenges our way to remind us to take a break. I've been working so hard, and it's all taken for granted. Let's see how he manages without me, especially when he finds out his mom's a liar and a thief. I sent him the pictures I took of his mom's bank account while I was investigating. Then I switched my phone to Do Not Disturb mode. I packed bags for me and the kids and checked into a nearby hotel, not wanting to disrupt their school routine. They asked why we were staying in a hotel, and to spare them unnecessary worry, I told them our house was being fumigated, so we needed to stay here for a while. I said Daddy would stay in another hotel. I couldn't bear to burden my sweet angels with the truth. They didn't eat to suffer when I was already struggling. I needed to heal for them first. Even with my phone on Do Not Disturb, messages flooded my inbox from both my mother-in-law and my husband. But I was too drained to deal with it all, so I spent the night relaxing and playing with my children. Morning came, and I was woken up by a phone call. Hello, Miss Fiona. There's someone named Adam here who'd like to meet you. We have to confirm if you know each other for safety reasons. Yes, I know him. He's my husband. You can let him know my room number. Adam arrived at my door, and I opened it. He immediately hugged me tightly, squeezing me tightly. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for everything. I saw the evidence you sent me, and you were right not to give her any more money. He began to cry in my arms, and I comforted him. I invited him into the room, and we started talking. Darling, I'm so sorry for everything. I'm glad you realized what was going on. Can you tell me what happened? Just then, my mother-in-law called. I decided to answer it. Hello. How dare you invade my privacy like that? I could sue you, you know. Do you even need the money? How dare you try to ruin my reputation in front of my son? It doesn't matter. He loves me, and he'll do whatever it takes to make me happy. You think he'll stop sending me money? Ha, you must be delusional. You think he'll listen to a mere housewife? You're sorely mistaken. Yes, I have money. I always had money since my husband passed away. I just like to control Adam sometimes so he doesn't get too arrogant. He needs to remember that mommy comes first. The voice on the phone wasn't my mother-in-law's. It was like a monster, so different and filled with malice. Her yelling woke up the children. So, you're not bothered by how your selfishness has disrupted this household? You don't care that Adam and I have been arguing because of your actions? You don't even care that you've been stealing from your own son and grandchildren. Oh, come on, you two are headed for divorce anyway. I can't wait for that. They'll come home to me eventually. And as for those kids, well, I guess I don't really care. Mom, that's incredibly cruel. Adam, honey, listen. I didn't mean it. Did you hear all of that? Adam, my love. Nope, that won't work on me this time. I've seen your true colors, and I've had enough. You've made the past few months hell for me and Fiona. How could you manipulate me like that? I'm your son. What kind of evil has possessed you to do such a terrible thing? I can't even imagine. I fell for your tricks, but my wonderful wife Fiona saw through you all along. She knew something was off, but I shouted at her and disrespected her. Not anymore. Fiona is my real family, not you. I never want to hear from you again. Adam, wait. But I have no one. Maybe that's how it should be. Click. Adam ended the call, and though he was upset, I could see a sense of relief in him. He'd been manipulated like this his whole life. Realizing that must have been a heavy burden, but it was lifted now. For the rest of the day, Adam apologized to me and the kids for his behavior and distance. He admitted he couldn't even survive one night without me. He's realized his mistakes and promised not to repeat them. And as for his mother, he meant it when he said he didn't want to hear from her again. She kept trying to call, but he always declined. She'd made her bed, and now she